Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Total War episode. Another topic, another sort of thing to dissect and look at to help you, the viewer, get better at this game. This time around, we're looking at diplomacy and trade. We're looking at leadership skills, all that sort of things there you can sort of manipulate to sort of get things a bit more in your favour. In particular, helpful as the larger empires sort of help keep your borders a bit more safe and a less problematic overall, because also utilise a smaller kingdom to sort of get things a bit more your way. I'm going to stick, of course, with the Western Romans because, well, with a bigger border, they have a lot more sort of influence overall because they'll be knowing a lot more cultures. So that's really why the reason I'm sort of going with them. Also starting up with a fresh game because then we get a fresh set of, things, and there's sort of a clean board, if you will, in terms of interactions. I mean, I have a later on game as the Western Romans, and I'll, by the way, probably do a playthrough thing later on once I get the hang of how I want to do that. So a little thing there. But overall, clean slate here, which of course also allows sort of more swiftly analyze things here. I mean, overall, one thing to sort of keep in mind with diplomacy is, note their traits. That's really one of the things you sort of have to immediately note. Their traits, that really tells you a lot of them and what they'll do in case of a war, but also, before a war. How will they sort of react to different things? And for example, defensive tells you more, in case of war, he's probably not going to be doing much. He'll probably just be holding back. Or as an ally, he will also, for example, be holding back. So in that regard, you might not have to worry too much about him. I mean, of course, it can be great having trade with, because then you can actually gain some gemstones, for example. So in that regard, you might actually want to be friendly with this fellow. And again, the question is, well, how do we do this? I mean, he's not really liking us, is he, Dane? Well, we also note he's actually got an enemy, the Vandals. Could we maybe not, say, hey, seems like you've got a Vandal problem? And of course, in theory, it could, maybe not right away, but, you initially say, alright, we'll join the war. And then as you fight the Vandals, because obviously the Vandals are coming after you as well, you'll slowly then sort of get better and more friendly with them. I mean, that's really all on sort of the initial tools you have, for example, in, forming things more towards you. For example, that's just fighting together with an enemy. I mean, fighting together gives you common ground, and it overall makes them more likely to like you. So that, for example, is one way. For example, joining their wars is one way. But of course, you can also have them join your wars. Of course, this guy, for example, really hates us. I mean, he hates rival empires, he dislikes Western Romans, he's temperamental, and a lot of other really unpleasant things. And he's overall in a war going to be quite a pain in the arse. I mean, we could, for example, look what does he think of his friends, on the sides here. Could we maybe convince him to fight against the Jutes? Oh, hey! Because we also note here, he's, unreliable. He's, and aggressive. He'll give anything, for a good fight. So again, give him that. We'll, for a briefer time, become a bit more friendly, and also hopefully go against the Jutes then. Again, a common enemy have, then all of a sudden. And again, that's also one thing. Even, he might turn against you, you can at least keep him occupied with someone else. That could also further give you time to deal with other issues. So, there are little things there as well to keep in mind. Opportunities, for example, here, so another bunch there, for example, means, keep an eye on him, otherwise he's going to give you trouble. Let's just keep it at that. I mean, those are all little things you can, for example, try to do. For example, we got this fellow here. Could he be interested, for example, in fighting a war with us as well? Likelihood of success? Yeah, well, He's reliable, on the other hand, which could make you a bit more, tricky to bribe towards it. I mean, he might also be suddenly very receptive. Still no? Come now, my friend. And of course, that guy, of course, I'm just using this as a test game. Of course, that guy, for example, in particular, at the start of the Western Romans, you need to be a bit more careful with how you do things. Of course, you can't really afford to just throw a lot of money away with it. But again, just to explain again, for example, compared to others, for example, the unreliable fellow, he's really taking a lot of money to do this. And again, all of a sudden, another war there, another sort of thing that I don't have to bother with, for example. There's a lot of things there to keep in mind. Culture and sure, for example, he's not going to be really friendly with you either. The Franks here could also, in fact, are a sure way, for example, here to sort of be calling in against something. They don't like them. Call them in. Oh, hey! Splendid job. I think we didn't get them in against the Jutes. No. So I mean, again, something there. Him, for example, here on your borders, he could be trouble. He's unreliable. He's an opportunist. This could help a bit, but overall, perhaps not too much. This fellow also not really reliable. We got the Keats here. He's, for example, a really good fellow for you. I mean, he's reliable, loyal, admires strong empires. If, for example, was a puppet state, you could pretty much keep your back secure with him. You wouldn't have to worry about that. Of course, that's something to keep in mind there, and certainly also something to always be mindful of when you're dealing with puppet states, you know, their leaders as well, because depending on their traits, they'll be more likely to sort of do nasty things to you or not. And that's generally something, you know, you want to avoid in those cases. I mean, you know, for example, I mean, you might have to keep an army nearby. You might have to send an agent in there to see, you know, maybe expedite, you know, the whole line of, you know, succession. Maybe convince, you know, someone else a bit more friendly to you to take over. So with these things, they can do a lot there as well. I mean, overall, though, for example, the smaller tribes here hanging about there can usually also be used to an advantage. I mean, they're more likely to, you know, be a bit more, how should we say, bribable in that sense. Of course, probably not the Huns. I mean, they'll probably require a lot of money, but the Askers, for example, could also easily serve and say, you know, you got a problem. Again, you pay them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they'll join in your wars. I mean, that guy, you know, also trading, for example, also helps you, and of course, in that guy, I mean, you want trade, you want money. Also, trade good can also a bit affect them. I mean, for example, there's something they need, though they won't actually tell you what they need. That can also help you a bit. Of course, that rather depends on sort of how more advanced they are along with things. So that is, of course, also another little bit there. But again, you know, wars is surprisingly enough one of your better tools to sort of manage these things. Of course, other messages are basically just giving him a big fat gift. For example, again, you know, we're saying, oh, hey, Mr. Swede or Geet, you know, I find you to be a really cool guy, and I'd really like to speed things up a bit, you know, so you might say, oh, here's a gift. All of a sudden, again, that'll just sort of give you a more, in the longer term, more benefits as well, and suddenly speed things up. It can also be used to, for example, you know, keep, say, a puppet state that might be a bit problematic, a bit more stable as well. But again, you know, wars, and again, you know, try and pay attention to these things, you know. I mean, they can tell you a lot about the relationships with each other, and of course, in that regard, you know, if they sort of, you know, have a bad relationship, you can exploit that to an advantage. I mean, try to do that. I mean, and this, they might say, rather Machiavellian, but again, you know, just take advantage of it. Try to use your, well, different tribes and such weaknesses to your advantage. And try, you know, just occasionally just pop up and see, you know, if they're interested in joining any wars. And just, you know, try to throw out some money if you can afford it, because you can usually find yourself, surprisingly enough, a lot of them will be here, oh, hey, you know, I might be keen on doing that, they'll say, and oh, great, that's cool. So it's very much something to keep in mind of, but also, of course, again, in terms of tributary states and puppet states, you've got that, for example, though, mind you, is pretty much on the Western Romans, the Eastern Romans, and the Sassanids who really deal in puppet states. But again, if you've got those, keeping in mind here, for example, on them, can also do a lot of good. Again, unreliable also means they're probably not going to be able to join you easily in a war, though you can also use it against your opponent. I mean, for example, you know, say again, oh hey, the Sassanid Empire, Armenia's unreliable. I mean, if I go to war with the Sassanids, you know, there might be a slight chance that, oh hey, Armenia might go against the Sassanid Empire, for example. So I mean, there are some little things that and then again you could even further go, oh hey, you know what would be funny if I sent someone in case, you know, he wasn't unreliable. You send in someone to kill him, the king, and you know, someone who popped up was a bit more malleable. So in that regard, you know, spies, priests, and champions are part of your, shall we say, diplomatic tools as well. That is, again, if you're, shall we say, a proper politician, or well, not politician, but you know, a proper leader. I mean, then again, you're not really going to be afraid of such little things as morals and if it's right. No, you know, it's right because it's good for you. That's the only thing that matters if you're an empire or a kingdom. What's good for you is what's right. That's politics for you, and diplomacy and power and so on. I mean, if you can keep those things in mind, you'll generally find yourself getting a surprisingly large amount out of the diplomatic system. At least that's what I've generally found. If you can do that again, you'll generally perform well. You'll have safe borders if necessarily. You gain friends, you'll gain trade routes, you gain money. And again, trade is important because again, trade is money that is not affected by corruption. And again, in that regard, a good thing to also keep in mind, for example, is upgrading those little things here. Again, things like gems are much more important than say, timber. Gems also have a slightly other beneficial little effect, not one you necessarily consider a lot, but for example, say you have a gold mine. Without gems, you can just upgrade regular, but if you can get the gems out, you get a goldsmith, and that means that you get trade tariffs, which means even more bonuses for trading. So in that regard, gems are, for example, a really important resource for trading, surprisingly enough. So in that regard, keep in mind there on the different resource costs, we'll try to sort of get more out of those buildings. Wine, for example, is also a pretty good trade resource. Olives as well, but again, gems and the other sort of more precious resources like spices are really, really good sources of income for you as well. And of course, in that regard, another important thing to keep in mind, of course, is generally, you have to have a sort of free route between whoever is trading with between you and your capital. Otherwise, of course, there might be a few problems. Usually a trade port in particular is very good with that, since generally the AI won't really be harassing them very much, but again, generally opens up for as many trade partners as possible compared to just being landlocked and having a land route. So for example, you're the barbarians, try to seize a port as soon as possible, for example, from the Romans and open up a path to your capital, and you'll generally be good on the way for a trading, adventure. And certainly diplomacy, to a certain extent, of course, as the barbarians, of course, is a lot easier. Just go to war with the Western Romans or the Eastern Romans and you generally become friends with everybody because no one likes those two empires. Again, for the Western and Eastern Roman Empire, of course, these things are a lot more tricky because, again, you're basically the big guys no one really likes. So, again, that's really where it points in. But even then, of course, as you fight on through the Romans, at some point, you're going to run out of Romans and then things are also done. Again, you have to sort of take care of everything else. So, again, try to sort of make use of the diplomatic landscape to a more successful measure. And hopefully this will help you get a lot more out of diplomacy and of course of trading and overall give you more money, but again, safer borders or at least weaker enemies. So thank you all for watching, hope you learned something and hope to see you another time. This is Imperial Dancing, cheers and thank you all for watching. Bye!